Pride and Prejudice. In the quiet town of Hertfordshire, the Bennet family leads a peaceful life. Mrs. Bennet is particularly concerned about the future of her 5 daughters, especially their prospects for marriage. One day, news spreads through the town that a wealthy bachelor, Mr. Bingley, is about to lease the nearby Netherfield Park. This news excites Mrs. Bennet greatly, as she sees it as a perfect opportunity to find a suitable match for one of her daughters. Mr. Bennet, with his wit and humor, finds his wife's excitement amusing but decides to visit the new neighbor anyway. Mr. Bingley, with his charming personality, quickly wins the favor of the Bennet family in the entire social circle. Shortly after Mr. Bingley leases the estate, a grand ball is held in the town. Mr. Bingley attends the ball, bringing along his friend, Mr. Darcy. Mr. Bingley is immediately attracted to Jane, the eldest Bennet daughter, showing a great deal of interest in her. However, Mr. Darcy's aloof and proud demeanor catches Elizabeth's attention, though his coldness and arrogance leave her with a negative impression. At the ball, Darcy refuses to dance with Elizabeth and makes a disparaging remark about her in conversation with Bingley, further solidifying her dislike for him. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, Darcy is gradually developing deep feelings for her, but his pride keeps him from expressing it. As time passes, the interactions between Elizabeth and Darcy become more complex. Meanwhile, the relationship between Mr. Bingley and Jane deepens, much to Mrs. Bennet's delight. However, Elizabeth becomes increasingly confused by Darcy's behavior. She learns that Darcy had interfered in Bingley's relationship with Jane, further fueling her dislike for him. At this point, the arrival of Mr. Wickham complicates matters even more. Wickham tells Elizabeth about his past with Darcy, painting him as a cold-hearted and ruthless man. After hearing this, Elizabeth's animosity towards Darcy reaches its peak. Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy deepens until one day, Mr. Darcy confesses his love for her. This sudden declaration shocks Elizabeth. Darcy admits that he has fallen for her, despite her lower social standing and lack of wealth, but he cannot control his feelings any longer. However, Darcy's confession is laced with pride and disdain for Elizabeth's family, which angers her. Elizabeth coldly rejects him, accusing him of sabotaging Jane and Bingley's relationship and mistreating Wickham. Darcy, looking stricken, leaves her in silence. After their confrontation, Darcy leaves Elizabeth a letter explaining his actions. In the letter, Darcy clears up the misunderstanding between him and Wickham, revealing Wickham to be a deceitful and reckless scoundrel. He also explains why he interfered in Bingley and Jane's relationship, believing that Jane's feelings for Bingley were not strong enough and that their marriage would not be a happy one. As Elizabeth reads the letter, she begins to reassess her opinion of Darcy. She realizes that her prejudice had led to a misunderstanding and that while Darcy's actions were proud, they were also motivated by genuine concern. With Mr. Bingley's sudden departure from the town, Jane falls into deep sorrow. Elizabeth feels guilty, believing that her accusations against Darcy indirectly caused Bingley's departure. She begins to develop complicated feelings for Darcy, wishing for an opportunity to see him again. Elizabeth's attitude becomes more humble, and her view of Darcy undergoes a significant transformation. When they meet again, Darcy's demeanor toward her is much softer. He is no longer the haughty man she once knew, but instead appears humble and considerate. In an unexpected visit, Elizabeth finds herself at Darcy's estate. She is surprised by the beauty and comfort of the place and learns from the housekeeper that Darcy is a generous and beloved master. This further changes her perception of him. To her surprise, Darcy arrives at the estate and warmly welcomes Elizabeth. They begin to reconnect, and Elizabeth finds that Darcy has changed a great deal. As their misunderstandings gradually dissolve, Elizabeth's feelings for him deepen. However, just as Elizabeth and Darcy's relationship begins to blossom, a scandal strikes the Bennet family. Elizabeth's younger sister, Lydia, elopes with Wickham, plunging the family into disgrace. Elizabeth is deeply troubled, believing that this event will destroy any chance of a future with Darcy. Upon learning of the situation, Darcy secretly intervenes, helping to bring Wickham and Lydia back and arranging their marriage. This act of responsibility and care moves Elizabeth profoundly, and she realizes that Darcy truly loves her and is willing to take responsibility for her and her family's well-being. In the end, with Darcy's encouragement, Mr. Bingley returns to town and proposes to Jane. Elizabeth also accepts Darcy's renewed proposal. Both couples find joy and happiness as they embark on their married lives. As Elizabeth reflects on her journey with Darcy, she realizes that true love requires not only passion but also understanding and respect. They overcame their pride and prejudice, leading to a fulfilling and happy ending.